Police operator 9671.
Yeah, I like to speak to an officer to report harassment and slander by a
Line.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, hang on 1 second.
Hmm. Excuse me. Oh, come on.
Officer Adams.
Yeah, this is Teresa Lockwood.
Hey, Teresa, how are you, ma'am?
All right. Who do you say this was? Adams?
Adams.
Oh, okay.
MS.
Yeah, I basically want to report harassment, slander, and obstruction of justice by Jason Parmer of the in quote so-called bogus in quote Faith Bible Church.
All right.
So because he just mocked and ridiculed me in front of everybody to his Antichrist cult. And made up a lie, falsely accusing me again because I'm really tired of these Antichrist people thinking they can just falsely accuse somebody of having like this bad behavior or something, which is slander against me, because I don't believe in the mind raping piggish lie that Jesus is God.
I'm sorry, my radio was up.
Yeah, so he slandered me from his pulpit this past Sunday, and falsely accused me, laughing in front of everybody, like he's laughing and ridiculing me in front of everybody to his dumb followers, and basically falsely accused me of claiming that they were heretics, which they are heretics, but I didn't. Falsely accused me of claiming they are heretics inside their church in the foyer, and said that their ex-deceased, who is in hell, false, in quote, pastor Lou, sat there and told me to get out. And that's not what happened whatsoever. So he just slandered me in front of everybody. And the thing is sitting there laughing. Oh, there was this woman that came in here and sat there and falsely accused me of causing problems. So, I mean, I did just do a video today against it and recorded him and basically explained what happened. But he falsified information and slandered me before, falsifying information to a police officer. That would be McKeon, who actually was the one who threatened to shoot me through my window. He was harassing me at the time.
How long ago was this, ma'am?
Huh?
How long ago was this, ma'am?
What, McKeon threatened to shoot me?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to say that was roughly, this is a rough estimate, but I'm going to say it was about 5-6 years ago.
All right.
So the thing is, I wound up going to the police department for information and stuff, and I was wound up being harassed by McKeon. Well, he was nice. He was pretending to be my friend and stuff. And he was trying to get me to manipulate the situation because I reported it, and he was trying to get me to ask him for a friend request, which I refused. I said, "You're welcome to send me your friend request. I have all kinds of evil people on my page, on my Facebook page." I said, "Anybody's welcome as long as you don't harass me on my page or have any like kind of criminal behavior, whatever, or perversion on your own page." So, the thing is, so he was trying to play buddy. I'm like, "We're not friends or whatever." So he's like, "Oh no, we're buddies. I'm like, "No, we're not, because you're trying to manipulate me to sit there and get me to send you a request to obstruct justice and pretend like to manipulate a situation because I reported you." So the thing is, I was like, I don't have friends, so I don't believe in having friends. So, but the thing is that at that time, like Jason Parmer showed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Oh, is that Jason Parmer?" I was just like, my eyes are blurry, you know that, but I could tell by the shape of his weird head, okay? So the thing is, I was like, "Yeah, you kicked me out of your church on Xmas Eve or whatever because I don't believe Jesus is God," right? So the thing is, he said we were trying to. It's also your police and your police department going around sitting there slandering me, claiming I rejected Jesus and I should be accursed, which was actually used years ago under Chief Codispati, who persecuted me and excommunicated me out of my town and refusing me rights because I did not believe that Jesus is God. They also destroyed my children. Okay.
Right.
So, because I do not believe that Jesus is God. And they're using this passage again, it's coming around again through your chaplains. So they're saying, well, if they preach any other gospel or whatever, except for what we gave you, let them be accursed. This is what they're quoting again. So it's going around again. And this is what Chief Codispati, your former Chief Codispati did. And getting heinous hate crimes against me. So the thing is I prove God exists in all the churches to be in the world to be wrong anyway. So this is why I'm basically a prisoner in my life or whatever and stuck wherever I'm at and my life destroyed because I would not believe in the evil lie that Jesus is God and because I'm a mystic Christian, right? So mystic means I receive revelation from heaven, by the way, if you're confused about that. So
I was kind of confused.
what's that?
I was kind of confused. I'm sorry. I was going to ask you what that meant.
Yeah, mystic. I receive mystical writings from heaven. And their original works or whatever, and I write mystical poetry from heavenly things that like I see or whatever. So spiritually, so discerningly. So yeah, mystical is basically you receive the mystical revelations from of the things of heaven. Okay, so I'm being persecuted for that or whatever, and I was excommunicated out of the Faith Bible Church on Xmas Eve. And that was well before that, though. That was probably around like 2007, 2008. So the thing is, he just made up a slanderous lie, covering up and falsely accusing me while I was excommunicated out of there, and said I was just sitting there because their false pastor, they're not saying false, but I am, their so-called in quote pastor sat there and he was teaching the Trinity or something, and so I sat there and I was in a foyer and started calling them heretics. I did not do that. And that's not even how it happened. I didn't even talk to anybody. And I was just walking out the door, like going home. I didn't really speak to anybody that day. And I was walking out, and I was outside the door. They were waiting for me outside, first of all. And their false pastor, in quote, Lou, basically was waiting by the door. And he said, "So you don't believe Jesus is God, huh?" Said, "Maybe you shouldn't come here anymore," like rudely and intimidatingly. So Jason Parmer's describing it as, he graciously told me to get out. He's mocking the situation and laughing at me in front of his whole congregation, his blind false cult followers. So the thing is, I was walking out and he said that, and then I just went back in. I'm like, I just got bullied and kicked out. Well, I didn't say bullied, I'm sorry. I just was rudely told that I'm not welcome here because I don't believe Jesus is God. And then I walk out, and then I'm walking down the sidewalk. Paul Barreca is sitting there standing on the sidewalk talking to a woman, and he's like, "Don't come back here, Teresa." That's how he said it exactly. And so I go to the person who brought me to the church, and I was like, I started crying or whatever, and I explained to them what happened or whatever, because there was like other discussions. Like they even had a couple, their members like invite me to their house and telling me I'm not allowed to teach or whatever because I'm a woman. They're doing that again. They're perverting our Bible, by the way. They don't even know how to interpret it. And they're sitting there saying we're not allowed to teach a man, right? And that's a sin for me to teach a man. Now, first of all, I'm the only one that can teach scripture in the whole entire world, and I know that for a fact, and I have proven it because I proved all their false doctrines to be false. That's all internationally, all over the world. And I have proof to back that up. So, and I proved God exists and proved the God that exists that's actually recorded in the Bible. It's okay if you don't never read the Bible or don't believe in it or whatever. But the whole point is in comparison in relation to, like, I'm being persecuted just because I won't believe in this filthy, evil, antichrist lie that Jesus is God, God is three people, and God can die. Okay? So the thing is, I said, your false trinity bury the true trinity, which is wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. That's a true trinity. And I'm the only one who taught it, like, in the whole entire world. And it's original teachings. Yes, it's in the Bible, but they don't know what's in our Bible. So I'm the only one who taught it to prove all the churches to be false. And, like, they're all going around slandering God and Jesus. The main problem is about all this, though, is that they're retaliating and heinous hate crimes being committed against me for like a couple of decades. Okay, like I've been persecuted by your Pentecostals in your police department, your Catholics, your Nazarenes, whatever they are. And they're all making up a lie about me. So I just did a video proving that how they pervert all the doctrines. I'm going to do another one. But I just recorded Jason Parmer too, mocking me and slandering me from his pulpit, his pedestal, his own throne that he sits on as plain, in quote, God in his own degeneracy. So the thing is that he has harassed and slandered me before. Okay, and that's all he does. He's a pathological liar, right? And the thing is, he basically teaches a mind raping doctrines that basically impairs people's discernment. And I've warned police about it, about these doctrines or whatever. They're unbiblical. They're not Christian. They're antichrist. They're anti-Christian. And so no judging, no gossiping, no criticizing, no finding fault, no complaining, which is all against law enforcement. And I basically even taught that to these churches and put it online for years and warned police about it. I'm like, these doctrines are to impair your discernment. This is why all these church people are dumb. All right. I said it's usually to impair people's discernment so victims are not hurt, especially their molested victims, which is basically used to silence their victims so that people do not hear. So if they sit there and speak about maybe somebody sexually abusing them or something or whatever, then they will sit there and basically, oh, you're gossiping. Oh, you're complaining. Now, what's law enforcement's job? To hear complaints. That's all your job is, correct?
That and do reports and arrest individuals who commit crimes.
Yeah, well, I've been arrested. I never committed a crime. This is me being persecuted because who I am is God who identifies who I am and identified who everybody else is opposed to me. And the reality is I prove myself within myself by the authority of God, within the knowledge that confirms itself within itself, that proves my identity, who I am. They did this. This is why they imprisoned me to Donald in the first place or whatever, because so I'm not hurt or whatever. He's my rapist. And the thing is, I had to keep him because they're going to uproot the wheat with the tares or whatever, because these people don't know what they're doing or whatever. Because like when I flipped out or whatever, because you have no idea, because they psychologically tied everything psychologically to my children. And basically, they psychologically tied that man to my children. So it had nothing to do with Donald, actually. It has to do with my children. Who they destroyed, by the way. Who they threatened and admitted in front of Judge Lacavera, who was in collusion with Chief Cottaspati. That would be William Clay of the Vine Nazarene Rhema Church. And they basically psychologically imprisoned me to my rapist or whatever, and psychologically imprisoned, brainwashed my children to basically to attach them to my children, and basically poison my children's minds against me to get them to abuse me or whatever, because I'm a prime credible witness of cult abuse, and ever since I was a child or whatever, and I was a prime credible witness or whatever, and I was exposing how they were brainwashing the people and children or whatever, and threatening and branding children as gossipers and complainers and all these other things, and finding fault, and all these rules are to silence victims. Because I went around investigating a lot of churches and their doctrines and see how nobody can hear all these victims all across the nation and internationally or whatever. So I collected these rules that they were using by listening to their sermons and seeing how they were doing it, and nobody can hear them, and how they were impairing people's discernment or whatever. So I did this even though I was being persecuted, and police were using police were using police to persecute me and stuff or whatever. I was basically observing the cause and effects of it and what is happening internationally, all over the world or whatever, and how I'm sorry, I just repeated myself, but how they were doing that. And so I've been persecuted and silenced and maliciously slandered to make sure that I am not hurt. Okay, so the thing is I've been refused rights, and I was told by police a number of years ago, if you're Christian, you're refused your rights. So they're going through the book of Timothy again or whatever, sitting there claiming that because it's a stealth letter. I exposed that also as being a stealth letter or whatever, and basically used to silence women's voices and make sure we are not heard, and that we're sinning against God, if we speak or teach knowledge or whatever and things like that. And they, like I said, they run to these false rules, and especially the letter of Timothy, when they want to sit there and make sure the woman, a witness against them, is not heard. And Jason Parmer acts like a freaking perverted freaking child molester. He seriously does. He basically frantically runs to lies and slander and the book of Timothy to sit there and claim that I'm not allowed to teach the word of God. And the thing is, we all do the same thing. There's nothing that makes somebody a pastor because they stand behind a pulpit and inside of a building. And their building is not the house of God, by the way. So it's a warehouse. It's no different than a whorehouse. It's no different than a go-go bar. Okay? There's no freaking different. So it's a building, all right? So the thing is that like they pervert our Bible, and the thing is, they attack me and persecute me because I know it's actually in the Bible, and I proved that it basically exposes that they're all just slandering God and Jesus and Christianity, every single one of these churches. So, by my original writings, I originated in me or whatever, because I had to I challenged the Bible to see if it was God. I'm the only one that is able to basically judge to see if it's God or not, because I know God, but they all say the same thing. But the thing is, I proved that all of them are twisting the Bible with proof. Now they're calling me arrogant and prideful and perverting the Bible and saying, oh, the things God hates pride, and resist the proud for whatever, because I proved them all to be false or whatever. But the only thing that is prideful and arrogant is them exalting themselves over the knowledge of God. Okay? So, oh, you're not of God. They're saying, oh, you're not of God or the Holy Spirit because, people who of the Holy Spirit don't prove things. This is how degenerate their minds are. And this is what I'm dealing with. And they're psychologically torturous, like constantly. And I experienced Bible abuse since I was a teenager. Well, preteen, 12 years old, since I was 12 or whatever. So I decided to do like a thing to basically speak against Bible and cult abuse, and that was my main thing, basically challenging what's in the Bible or whatever, see it was of God or whatever, and then speak against how they abuse and twist the Bible. Hello?
I'm here.
So the thing is, like, police have been persecuting me, but even when they're persecuting me, I'm still telling the police, I'm like, don't listen to them. They brainwash people to spiritually blind people to sit there and rob them. That's what they're doing. And the whole thing is, we're not to take any tithes or money from anybody. That's completely unbiblical and it's against the word of God. And I'm like, Jesus never passed an offering plate. It doesn't necessarily have to be a plate or offering plate, whatever. But I'm just like, we will never take money for speaking knowledge. We're not going to do that. I will never do that my entire life. And I live like a poor whatever. And the knowledge I have, I can actually sell and make a lot of money off of if I could. I mean, if I would do that, it's just beyond me. I wouldn't be able to do that because it's just blasphemous, and it's just a horrible thing. I would never ever sell God's word or whatever, but their minds become corrupted or whatever because they just like to see people out of money. They don't even have a job. Like Jason Parmer is like a basketball fanatic. Jesus leads people to basketball. It doesn't have to be basketball, but that's a dead man's sport. And you sit there, if you're a basketball fanatic, you can't be Christian. You can't spend your life chasing after a freaking ball and then sit there and claim you're spiritual. You can't do that. It's not going to happen. Where if you become spiritual or whatever, I don't care, you're making millions or whatever, you're NFL or NBA or whatever the case may be, you're just going to automatically, you're just going to stop playing. That's what's going to happen. You're not going to chase around a stupid ball in a stupid field or whatever and consume that for your life. We would not be able to focus on such things.
Teresa, I totally agree with you. I think they make way too much money.
Well, I think it's a slave trade anyway. So, it's really ridiculous. It's a slave trade, and I mean, I believe a lot of their practices are illegal. Actually, I don't know how they get away with it. How can you just like trade players? You just trade players like they're it's human trafficking. And it's not considered human trafficking because it's entertaining for people. And the thing is, it's like because, there's some, in quotes, so-called laws, like protecting this or that, and they make a lot of money, so who cares? And why wouldn't they just want to play basketball? But you can't be that intelligent and chase after a ball, I'm sorry, and spend all this time, like, practicing these games and stuff, like, consistently, constantly like that all the time. I'm not saying basketball or football, whatever, to play that is like a sin or anything or evil, but you're not going to consume your time with it. It's good for, like, I mean, I even mentioned it, like, for police, like, a couple times. I just did it not too long ago. Like, I do believe that it would be good for police to play tag football. Not like,
Awesome.
Yeah, you know why?
I would play.
For offense and defense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I suggested that years ago. And I don't to consume your time with it, but to use it for tactics to maneuver, and avoid like attacks or whatever and things like that or whatever, and to run chase after something. I think there's a lot of principles in play that I think will be good for police.
I think it would be too.
Yeah, not tackle football because you don't want to put yourself in a position to cause injury when you're trying to be a police officer.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So, but tag football, I think it will be good for just like defense and reactions and things like that.
Absolutely.
That's my original idea, by the way.
Keep us sharp on our toes. Right?
Yeah. So, and then you get your exercise, and, because, I mean, I'm a big woman, but I'll be sitting here, whatever, on my munchies or whatever. Y'all be, well, I want to call it Dunkin' Donuts these days. I don't know where. I don't want to make a donut joke, but it's so tempting every time, though. I don't know why it's related even at all, but, you're getting a little thick around around the waist and stuff or whatever. It's good to keep, it'll be good to keep active, and in shape. So anyway, but the thing is, it's just that I don't know how do we get into football? Oh, Jason Parmer and his fanaticism in basketball. So the thing is just that, if Jesus, they didn't have, I don't think they had basketball then, but, but if there was, right, and if Jesus basically was leading people to play football to consume their time so they don't, a lot of times it's used so they stay off the streets, don't get into drugs, and I get it, and you got to consume, like, people's mind and thinking and time or whatever if they have nothing to do, but it's really sad that there is nothing to do. Except for either do drugs or play basketball or whatever. That's ridiculous. So there's no such thing. So, so the thing is, it's just like, Jesus would definitely be debunked by me if he promoted, like, football to consume your time so, you have something to do or you don't get in trouble. That's, like, there's nothing to do. This world is falling apart. And he's leading people to basketball? Really? Are you serious? Like, they don't live in reality. They don't. They consume their time with, like, wasteful things or whatever. Oh, and persecuting women, obviously. And that's another thing. He attacks mysticism from his pulpit and slanders and makes up lies about what that is. I didn't go around calling myself a mystic, by the way. I was basically called a mystic by the Nazarene church who was persecuting me. And then I was called a witch for being a mystic or whatever. Like, they were messing with me because they identified my poetry that I showed them or whatever. They identified it as mystical writings. They called me a mystic. Then all of a sudden they started slandering me or whatever and started saying abuse or whatever. So, so the thing is, and they said that mysticism is like witchcraft or something like that. It was unbelievable. Like, my poetry is spiritual and it's holy. And police actually had Donald destroy a lot of my writings and my books and my journals and my poetry and stuff or whatever, and a lot of my stuff and my pictures for my children and stuff like that or whatever. And used him to do it. That's why they did all this or whatever. But because I just wrote. That's basically wrote, read, researched, studied. I study a lot of false doctrines that infect the world and society. That's what I do. I spend my whole life doing it. And so whatever. I just wanted to report them because they're manipulating, because of obstruction of justice too. That's another thing. They're obstructing justice, trying to cover up what they did. They're probably being questioned or whatever, and they're making up lies that did not happen. And like, he wants to sit there and ridicule me. Now, I sit there and speak against his evil, but the thing is, he's speaking evil. Like, he's like me. They're saying that because I use harsh, like, really, really harsh, sharp words that basically digs inside their freaking bad, evil side of the conscience or whatever. That I don't touch the good conscience. So, like, the evil side of the conscience or whatever. Like, you see me, like, I'll rip your mind apart if you're basically attacking me. So I'll get inside your mind and I'll rip it apart like I did that nasty ass freaking Lisa Smith or whatever when she came here and kidnapped Donald or whatever. And I was tortured because it wasn't about Donald, it was about my children. I wanted to, I did want to die. And it's like, and then they were sitting there trying to use that to cover up police filing false charges on me, to use that and falsely claim I'm like this horrific person as they slandered me. and did all these things or whatever, trying to add that on, and they're falsely claiming I'm violent or whatever, and they're lying, and they made up lies and sat there and said I was suspended out of high school, which I never was, and I was a very calm, introverted, quiet child. Like, I wouldn't speak all this like I don't know. I enhanced, like, after like 25, 20, probably 27, 28, 29, I started speaking more or whatever. But because I was just going through so much persecution and like abuse and stuff like that or whatever. And I was like tortured. So I have a little, like a characteristic, a change or whatever. But I used to be a quieter person, believe it or not, and spoke much less. So I just went through just a lot of wars. Like, it's kind of like putting a shy person in a war, and they're not going to come back the same person. You know? I mean, well, they're the same person, but they're just going to come back more in a warrior type mode because of what they went through, you know? So, yeah. So the thing is, I like to sign a complaint against Jason Parmer, and especially because, like, he's just there and played all these games or whatever. I just did a video what our Bible says, because it's also police, because I'm sitting there, because I mentioned in court, right? I was in court, and I said, yeah, well, they're persecuting me because I don't believe that Jesus is God. Right? I said that in court, and they made a malicious, nasty, like, perverse, false documentary against me, which completely slanders me, slanders my biological father, slanders my life. And because they're, like, put me on a flag list and put me as an EDP, so they go around speaking against emotions and getting police officers to attack people, women, and mainly who are emotional and express emotions to make sure they're not heard, which I obviously know why they did that. And that was former Chief Cottis Body. And the thing is just that they were calling me an EDP. They're covering up and falsely claim that I was claimed to be EDP when I was like, I don't know, I guess middle school or something like that or whatever, which is untrue. It's not true at all. I was very, like, quiet, like, just timid. And the thing is, I was, you know, one of probably the most unpopular kids in school, but I was bullied and stuff or whatever. But they're lying. They're perverting my whole life, and none of these things happen. They're trying to call me violent because, well, yes, I did punch a foster parent in the freaking face or whatever, and that's only because I was protecting my child, and I was basically did it because she was human trafficking children to a sex child abuser or whatever. I was like handed over to them, but they didn't touch me or whatever, except for when they pulled me up by my throat or whatever, and like kind of pressed me up against the wall or whatever, because I was like in the house or whatever, in the hall or whatever, and I think they were probably sexually abusing their own children. I don't know. They came out of this room or whatever, and I was just grabbed by the throat or whatever. So the thing is, I think they were too scared to try to attempt anything or whatever, because I asked questions. You know, it's like, well, why? Well, why? You know, because nobody ever spoke to me, so I guess probably why I basically, well, shy, introverted, or what have you. It was either that one thing or another or whatever. But it was just like, but the thing is, I was basically, she was handing over all the kids to this known pedophile or whatever, and then she kidnapped my children or whatever. They said that I wasn't allowed to have children or whatever because, like, I don't believe in marriage certificates. It's unbiblical or whatever. I do speak against adultery. It's not adultery because I don't believe in marriage certificates or whatever. But she went behind my back and kidnapped my children and said I wasn't allowed to have children because I'm not married. This is what they did. And then they moved with my children or whatever. They kidnapped them. And these are people who were pedophiles, and they were trying to get my babies or whatever to abuse my children or whatever. And I asked for help over and over and over, and nobody would help me or listen to me, because she would sit there. Well, she would tell people that I was mentally retarded. Your police department people and your chaplains and stuff would call me mentally ill for correcting them. But when I was a child, they tried to put me in like a school for the mentally challenged or whatever, and they thought they could get away with it because I was very quiet, and until the woman started speaking to me. But they were trying to hide me because I was a prime credible witness against child sexual abuse, and I was being questioned by the state and stuff. And so they abandoned me in a Tennessee group home or whatever. a private, in quote, antichrist, I'm gonna say antichrist, but in quote, Christian group home or whatever, and I found out that they abandoned my brother there after those people like sexually abused my brother and physically abused him or whatever. So the thing is just that they were trying to silence me. They would always tell people that I'm mentally retarded. They even called DIFUS to try to take my daughter even before she was born, to sit there and have me come back home because I was trying to leave and get away with these people and protect my baby. So they called DIFUS and said I was mentally retarded, trying to make me come back home so they can have my baby. Because their niece or whatever you want to call her or whatever, she said she wanted my baby. Yeah, so
It's a lot to handle.
Yeah, well, this is like continual, throughout, like all the time though. But the mentality of these people in these churches, the people don't understand. And the thing is, they're persecuting me because I'm basically a witness. Like, I'm discerning how people are getting away with all these things. And like I said, like, they imprisoned me to my rapist. I don't know. I can't even think like how far back, but they were convincing him or something that they're trying to force marriage because I didn't want to be with a white guy, right? Because I was surrounded by a bunch of evil white guys or whatever. Nothing personal. I don't think every white guy is evil or whatever. I just didn't want to be with a white guy, and I fell in love with a Romanian, right? And I'm still in love with him. I consider him like my only real, like, my husband or whatever. And I've told Dom that too. I was like, I'll never love you. You'll never be my husband. I was like, Pete's my husband. So his name is Pete Stevenson or whatever. So I fell in love with him. I never stopped loving him or whatever. But I wound up, I don't consider it adultery because people could say, oh, well, you deceived, you were this, or whatever. They kidnapped my son because they said I wasn't allowed to have my son, right? Because they said like I was an adulteress and I didn't have a marriage certificate. So I didn't believe then. Well, I had different thoughts about it now than I do then, but I didn't really believe it then because I didn't have much knowledge about it or whatever. But I didn't believe in it because it was just, like, marriage was just so perverted, because what they just claimed was marriage, and these people claim they're all marriage and they're like all of God and they're like just pigs, you know. So I had to research that and research it more because I'm just like, it's like unbiblical. Like, the marriage certificate was created to control marriage, and so it's only approved by the Catholic Church. And if you don't accept the Catholic Church, because it only started in medieval times. They made a marriage certificate so if you don't accept the Catholic Church, you can't get married. So if you can't get married, you can't be together, and therefore you were called an adulterer. That's how marriage certificates